March Madness is here, and coming with it, Luis Fernandez is trying to fill out the perfect March Madness NCAA tournament bracket. And we're going to walk our listeners and viewers about how to go about doing that, Luis Fernandez. But our odds, probably have better odds to win the lottery.
Oh, I mean, yeah. It's no one's got a perfect bracket. Listen, every year when I go to fill out my bracket, my goal, I have a couple of goals. One is, let's see how many games I can go without losing someone, right? Normally it's one game, like max. Then my next goal is, well, let's see how far I can go without losing a Final Four team. And normally I lose one by the end of the first weekend. So, and then from that point, it's just have fun. Have fun, because most of the time that's all really the only option you got to have. Just go in expecting chaos, and we'll do our best here to help you navigate that. So maybe you just have a little less chaos than everyone else.
And so this is to try to help you to make sure that your bracket's not in threat and shreds by the end of the first weekend. UConn's going to open up as the favorite in this tournament, and for good reason.
Yes. And
the Blue Bloods don't rebuild. They reload, Luis Fernandez. Walk our listeners through why the Huskies are going to win back-to-back national championships, something that hasn't been done, mind you, since the Florida Gators.
So calling UConn a blue blood is a little bit controversial in some people's minds.
Ooh, okay.
I think UConn has looked like one of the most dominating teams in the country throughout the course of the season. They have been right there with everyone. They have, according to Ken Palm, who, if you do not understand, something you'll probably hear a lot over the course of the next week. Ken Palm is a collection of advanced stats within men's college basketball. So it ranks teams different than you'd see like AP rankings or anything like that. So Ken Palm has UConn as the number one overall team in the entire rankings. They are number one in adjusted offensive efficiency. So that is how many points they are scoring per 100 possessions adjusted for opponents. They are 11 in adjusted defensive efficiency, which is points allowed per 100 possessions adjusted for opponents. They've just been very good. They're 31-3. They've only lost 3 times. They just won the Big East tournament. They've looked very dominating. They have that experience. This, to me, feels like the best chance to get a back-to-back national champ since that Florida Gator team in 06 and 07. Now, that's not to say that they cannot lose. The one thing I want to throw in here, Mark, is to say, just as we have not had a national champion, a back-to-back national champion since 2006, 2007, the defending national champion the following year in the NCAA tournament has not made it past the Sweet 16 in all of these years since Florida's back-to-back.
Wow.
So this is one of those things where how much do you trust UConn?
Let me pull back the curtain for our listeners and viewers. This wasn't in the show notes. I wasn't prepared for this.
Isn't that wild?
But I would say that's crazy. Stefan Castle's the team's best pro prospect. Senior transfer guard Cam Spencer. You talk about efficiency. Almost 15 points a game, the 3-to-1 assist to turnover ratio, almost 50% from the floor, 91% from the foul line, 44% from three. Oh, they have Tristan Newton as well. They have Alex Caravan. Donovan Klingon as well is going to be a lottery pick as well. You mentioned the Ken Palm rankings. The one thing I think holding UConn back isn't the complacency from a year ago, because Adama Sanogo, Jordan Hawkins, Andre Jackson Jr., they're all in the NBA. But I look at their bracket. It is really tough. We get into week 2, right? FAU, a Final Four team from a year ago, bringing back 7 out of its 8 players from last season's team. You have to face them in round 2. Oh, and let me look at the other bracket. Illinois is a 3 seed, just won the Big Ten tournament. Iowa State smoked Houston in the Big 12 tournament. They have a really, really tough bracket. And then, you mentioned your Ken Palm rankings, Luis Fernandez. Auburn, check them out in the Ken Palm rankings. They're really high up. What are they? Number 4 in the country in Ken Palm?
You said take that for data. Yeah. So that's you're right. I don't think FAU is I'm not as concerned about them as I was last year, and then I was super concerned about them last year. But I think FAU being an 8 seed is pretty. It's a little high for my taste, but that Auburn game in the Sweet 16 is very scary. I was kind of shocked that they were a 4 seed. I mean, they went on this big run towards the end of the year. They won the SEC tournament, and it just feels like the committee didn't reward them at all. When one thing I like to look at with rankings, right, is what are the teams that stand out as kind of being seated in the wrong place, right? And so Auburn as a 4 seed. So that would mean that the best Auburn would be the, what, if I'm doing my math correctly, 13th best team in the country, right? The KenPom has Auburn as the 4th best team in the country. So it's interesting. That
all right.
I agree with what you're saying though. UConn, yes, difficult bracket, that could be a problem.
If not UConn, who do you like to win the NCAA tournament? And then we'll get to the manifesto of all the rules that you should follow if you're filling out your bracket.
So I always tend to lean towards higher seeds, just because historically speaking, and this is something we'll talk about here in a second, higher seeds tend to win. Those teams that historically tend to do well. Houston, I think, is a prime example. I had Houston winning it all last year. I did not get rewarded for that, unfortunately. I think that I don't necessarily trust Purdue. I think that might just be more of last year's 116 loss talking, but I just don't trust Purdue. I think UNC is in a really good position, assuming they play like they did not against NC State in the ACC tournament.
Leading up to that game, we'll say.
Yeah, leading up to that game, yes. But really, I think Houston is the one team I'd be watching. Auburn is also intriguing. If Auburn can get out of if Auburn can get past UConn, I'm very fascinated by what they could do. It's interesting. Like I said, if there's going to be a year where someone repeats, I think this is the year. But I don't know. If you're putting together the bracket, sometimes you want to kind of zig where other people zag. So what about you, Mark?
I like UNC and I like Houston. And look, you're saying, Mark, we're number 1 seeds. Oh. Let me give you some numbers. Since 1985, when the tournament expanded to 64 teams, number 1 seeds have won 24 out of 38 championships. Number 2 seeds have won 5 championships. 3 seeds have won 4. It means since 1985, 33 out of 38 NCAA tournament champions are top 3 seeded teams.
Yep.
So look, like it's not always fun to go chalk, but those are the other teams that I also like.
The last 2 seed to win a national champion was Villanova in 2016.
Okay.
The last 3 seed to win a national championship was UConn in 2011.
What was Baylor a few years ago?
They were a 1 seed.
Okay, my memory.
Wasn't that 1-1? I think that was Baylor versus Gonzaga. I think it was 2-1 seed.
Yeah. My memory failed me there. Let's get to our next rule.
Okay.
Is picking a team with the blue uniform.
They call them blue bloods for a reason.
Yeah, we're talking about blue bloods. Okay, so why is this? Since 2004, 23 out of the 20, since 2004, only Louisville in 2013, Baylor in 2021 have won the national title without blue as a primary uniform color. So
Houston, that means they're not going to win.
By these rules, yeah. But you're not wrong with the high seeds usually winning, though. And it's fun when the UMBCs or the Fairleigh Dickinsons of the world win, but there have only been 2 number 1 seeds to get knocked off. There have only been 11 2 seeds get knocked off by 15 seeds. So, like, when you're filling out your bracket, I don't have the appetite or the fortitude to knock off a blue blood in the first round. It's not impossible, but just given that we've been doing this now for decades, it is not likely, is what I would say.
Interesting.
Do you want to get into your Ken Palm rankings? Because you do this every year and you explain with the efficiencies on offense or defense of which teams are capable of winning. Because I want to get a rundown of that list, and then we'll revisit this list come early April and be like, Lewis was right again.
Well, so there are a couple of different ways to look at the Ken Palm rankings and how it all calculates. I'm going to give you two. So one note, this one's a lot more straightforward. That since Ken Palm started in 2002, all but one national champion has ranked inside the top 25 in adjusted offense and adjusted defense. Essentially what that means, balance. Balance is important. What you often see is those teams that are like really good on offense and really bad on defense, or really good on defense and really bad on offense, they're a lot more up and down. So they're either going to get hot or they're going to be really cold. So in order to win 6 games in a row, you have to be able to stay the course. You want to know some teams that fall within that category?
Lay it on us, Luis Fernandez. I'm ready.
It's a decent amount, and it's kind of some people who you would expect. There are some kind of little surprises in there, though. UConn.
Yep.
Houston. Purdue.
Okay. Hang on. Can we pause there with Purdue really quickly?
Yeah.
You mentioned earlier of trepidation from last year compared to this year. One thing with Purdue, everyone knows about Zach Edey. He's massive. He's 7'4", 24, and almost 12 rebounds a game. The outside shooting is much improved from a year ago. So last year they were at almost 33% from deep. This year they're almost 41%. Huge improvement there for the Boilermakers.
It's interesting because it almost, in some ways, it harkens back to what happened the last time a 1 seed lost to a 16 seed, right? When UVA lost and then came back to win the national championship game the next year. A lot of people would not trust picking UVA to go very far in that year either. So I don't know. I want to dig into it a little bit, just truly see how much different this Purdue team is. But
one other thing with Purdue, and I'll let you continue your list, I promise you. Braden Smith, their guard, 4th in the nation in assists, 7.3 a game. Very good ball distributor. But please continue your list with Ken Palm rankings, Lewis.
So I said Auburn, Arizona, UNC, Creighton, Marquette, and that's the last one.
So among those teams, for people listening to this or watching this, one of those teams is going to win the national championship.
Well, yeah, I mean, like it's 20 of 21 years. The only time this has not happened was in 2014 when UConn, as a 7 seed, went on that wild run and beat Kentucky in the national championship game. Now, another way to look at this, right, is if you want to get ultra specific. Since 2002, once again, when Ken Palm was created, no team has every team that has won the national. Every team that has won the national championship has had an adjusted offense of 57th or better, and an adjusted defense of 44th or better. And so that includes all the teams I just named and a couple teams I did not name. I'll go ahead and list some of them off because this one adds a few more teams to that list that makes things really interesting.
Okay.
Iowa State, 55th in offense, 1st in defense. So
stifling defense, great pressure. They turn you over, and if you need to know what I'm talking about, go pop on that tape of that Big 12 conference, that conference tournament game where Iowa State smoked Houston.
Tennessee, 29th offense, 3rd defense.
I know Dalton Connect is very good there, but Rick Barnes getting it done in March. He's only made 1 Final Four appearance during his entire coaching tenure.
And Tennessee, as I believe, has the fourth longest stretch of teams with a NCAA appearance that have not made the Final Four ever. So are they due, or is there another reason why? Duke. They were just outside of that top 25 one. 7th offense, 26th on defense. Let's see who else here. Michigan State. And that one shocked me. But this is one of those ones where I'm like, okay, what does the eye test say? Because 57th in offense, 8th in defense. They play very slow. So I think that's one that makes me a little bit, I'm not sure. St. Mary's, that's another one. New Mexico.
Mark, you love New Mexico.
We talked about New Mexico earlier. Colorado, Nebraska. Nebraska's interesting too. TCU, Nevada, Colorado State, Boise State.
All right. Who you got winning the whole thing, Lewis?
Me? Mark. It is, and this is for those of you who are watching this to try and get advice. I'm going to give you this exact same advice. Today is March 18th. The NCAA tournament starts. Well, the actual first round, not the play-in, starts on the 21st. I will submit my bracket minutes before the first game tips.
You're a sick man, but I respect it to get all the last-minute research.
And that's what I recommend to everyone watch this. Mark, what about you? Do you have someone you're picking?
UConn will beat Houston in the championship game.
So 2-1s.
Is honestly happens. I mean, yes, it's chalk, but that's what I got. I really think this is UConn's year to repeat. I do.
I can see that. Before we wrap this up, I just want to throw out a couple more little factoids for people here. Okay. Now, some of these I think are just causation or correlation, Mark Bergin. I don't know. We'll see. Okay. For the last 19 NCAA champions have all ranked inside the top 12 in the Week 6 AP poll. Very random, I know, but it's true. Some of the teams that we've mentioned here: Arizona, Purdue, Houston, UConn. Kansas was up there technically, but I don't think Kansas is going to go far. Baylor.
Not with McCullers' injury, but yeah.
Marquette, Creighton, UNC, Gonzaga. Sorry, I can't read my own handwriting. Oklahoma didn't make the tournament. Tennessee. So something to keep in mind. No 5 seed has ever won a national championship.
Okay.
San Diego State came close last year, but did not win. 34 years of champions, the past 34 years, have come from a conference that recorded 4 bids or more. So one team that falls into that category, or one league, is the Big East and UConn. They only have 3 teams. But also, some of that, was talking to Pat Welter a little bit earlier, some of that I feel like is a little bit off, because the reason why the Big East doesn't have more is because they had a lot of teams on the bubble, and they got their bids stolen from those 5 teams that got automatic bids. Teams like Providence, Seton Hall, I think they should be in.
You don't want to mention Rick Pitino's St. John's team? He's
sure,
probably watching our show right now,
yeah,
Lewis.
Oh, yeah, Rick Pitino's a big fan. And then the last thing I will include here is no team has ever won a national championship after losing its first game in its conference tournament. Do you want to know some teams that lost their first game in its conference tournament?
I know Duke is one of them.
Duke, Tennessee, Creighton, Kentucky, Kansas, Alabama. Those are just like in the top 4 seeds. So there you go. There's no reason you shouldn't win your bracket pool now.
I think we instilled some wisdom onto the listeners and the viewers of WRAL Triangle and Two. He's Luis Fernandez. I'm Mark Bergin. A lot of time between now and the tip-off of the first round, not the first 4, but the first round of the 2024 NCAA Tournament. That'll do it for us here. Give us a 5-star review, Apple and Spotify. YouTube, tap that subscribe button on the 99.9 The Fan YouTube page.